never before in the history of this place known as British Columbia have all the First Nations gathered under one roof to share and to witness an event of this size or magnitude. It is the first of its kind. This celebration is the coming together of the power and the strength of the First Nations of all parts of this great country. This day represents a true bonding of First Nations. This celebration is our expression of trust to each other and our deep abiding respect. This celebration is a statement to the world. We have a full agenda. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I hope when you go home, you will remember this day. It is historic, it is unique, it is a sharing of our culture with each other and the world. And Canada is only the stronger for the presence of such great people, elders and children that are present in this building and from the communities that you come from. Thank you for coming. Have a good time. It's an honor and a great pleasure to introduce at this time a nation of people of whom I have the most respect, the Haida.
This next dance we call Outla. It's a spirit dance. The mask that you will see is a person in the spirit state. And the medicine man in front is there to reveal the spirit, to take the mask off the dancer.
gives me a great honor to introduce our next speaker, a man who decided that it was more important to speak out for Aboriginal people and the Constitution than it was to hold a position with the Supreme Court of British Columbia. That man stood by his principles and abandoned a career for our people. And I believe we should give a warm welcome to Justice Tom Berger.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chiefs and hereditary chiefs and band councillors and friends. My travels in one capacity or another have taken me all over our province and all over our country and indeed all over the continent. And I've had an opportunity to see what is apparent here today, that the culture of the First Nations of British Columbia, of Canada, and of our whole continent, the culture of the First Nations, the spirit of the First Nations is alive and well and thrives everywhere, but perhaps most of all here in our own province of British Columbia. You know, because I have been associated with the cause of Native people, the First Nations, I often am asked, well, what's the matter with the Native people? What is it they want? Every poll shows, here in British Columbia as well as in other provinces, that Canadians believe there should be a settlement of the land claims of our First Peoples. Now, when you live in British Columbia, you may say, well, that's all very well for the rest of Canada, but here in British Columbia, we've always had governments that have said no to Native people. They've said no to self-government. They've said no to land claims. But remember this. We had a Prime Minister of Canada who back in 1969 said no to Native people. He said, you talk of Aboriginal rights to me. Prime Minister Trudeau said, you come to me and talk about Aboriginal rights. My answer is no, never. And you changed his mind. By the early 70s, you had Mr. Trudeau agreeing that there had to be a settlement of the land claims of Native people. By the early 70s, the federal government had agreed that you should have your own schools if you wanted them. By the late 70s, you had all three parties in the House of Commons agreeing that there had to be self-government for Native people. By 1982, you managed to establish in the new Constitution of Canada that you are the Aboriginal peoples and that your Aboriginal rights and treaty rights should be respected. You've come a long way, and I'm glad to be here to join you in celebrating years of achievement and looking ahead to predict that there will be years of even greater achievement for you. I want you to think of this day as a day of celebration. I know that sometimes it is frustrating. You begin to think that you're not making any progress, but you've made a lot of progress. You've got outstanding leaders all over the country, some of whom are speaking to you today from this very platform. You have your elders who are carrying your traditions, who won't let you forget who you are or where you came from or who your people are or what your people achieved in the past. And you've got your own determination to carry on the struggle here in our own country. Let me just close by citing the words of a great Canadian poet who believed in your cause. His name was Frank Scott. He argued some of the first cases on behalf of Native people in the courts. And he wrote a poem once in which he said, if human rights and harmonious relations between cultures are forms of the beautiful, then the state is a work of art that is never finished. We're working together to complete that work of art, and let me just leave you by urging you all to keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
The drummers from the Okanagan Nation are the Eagle Valley Singers. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, don't be afraid to clap for the dancers. Encourage them. They put on a better exhibition when you round them up. Let's hear a round of applause for the Okanagan Nation.
We now welcome the Celtic Nation. Why has the ambassador to the United Nations come to this potlatch? And the answer is pretty simple for me. I have believed all my adult life in your struggles and your objectives in the quest for Aboriginal rights and title. And then there was the Constitution Act in 1982, which sets in play the process which continues
next week. In 1984, I went to the United Nations, and I thought perhaps Aboriginal struggles would be divorced from that environment. I was wrong. The fight on behalf of Aboriginal peoples through the human rights legislation, through the Working Group on Aboriginal Populations in Geneva, on the work that is done in many of the committees of the United Nations, that is as much a part of my life now as the political struggles before. And I'm proud to say that Canada plays a major role. And it seems to me that's one of the strongest reasons why we must find an agreement amongst the governments, federal and provincial of Canada, and the First Nations of Canada. That's why I'm here today. I salute you for this magnificent celebration uniting the generations, and I thank you immensely for giving me the privilege of being here. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, dance Halino.
Yeah.
across this country over the past 3-4 months, our people have demonstrated to Canadians that they support what the leadership across this country is doing at the First Minister's meeting. In British Columbia, rather than having a rally, a march, your leaders got together, thought a bit, and decided that what we had to show this country was what we had to offer the rest of the people that share this beautiful land with us. Your leaders decided that somehow we had to get a message across to Canadians that we're incomplete in this country. We're incomplete not so much because we have constitutional business that is not complete. We have something lacking in this country because the original people and Europeans have never fully come together and shared each other's strengths. We are here telling the world that we have more to offer than just beautiful valleys, wonderful mountains, great resources like the world has never seen before. We are telling Canadians that wonder who they are, that wonder if they're second-class Americans, that the heart and soul of North America is still alive and strong in the original nation. We are not about putting people out of their homes. We are not about taking other people's land. We are not about taking jobs from other people. We are not about taking money for nothing. What we want is the opportunity, like other peoples in the world, to leave our mark, to contribute to humanity, to help shape a world that is better for all people. We, as leaders going into that meeting, are very strengthened by activities like this. I know I speak for the other leaders that are here. You have made us much more confident. You have given us the strength that we need to represent you properly. Thank you for this event. Thank you very much.
It's been a tremendous day for all of us. I wanted to extend, on behalf of BC First Nations, our pleasure and honor of having the National Chief, George Erasmus, to be here to witness British Columbia Indian culture. I believe everyone will leave this place, this house, with a feeling that there is power and that there is strength in the culture that exists in British Columbia, and that someone had said some years ago, a lady who was a Blackfoot, that we must keep our songs, we must keep our traditional dancing, because if we lose those, it would be like the stars in the heavens going out, and all that would be left would be a void. We will close this day in the spirit of which we started, mutual respect and a sharing. And one final word, thank you for coming. Safe journey home. I hope you enjoyed yourselves.